Welcome to the Dopamine Pursuit Podcast, a podcast for ambitious people in the pursuit to hit new and extraordinary levels in life. A space where we learn to break our negative addictions and our negative patterns and embrace healthier habits and healthy doses of dopamine while pursuing a more purposeful life. We are here to uncover practical strategies, inspiring stories, and expert insights that will empower you to pursue your dreams and make them a reality. We are talking all things from business, leadership, marketing, health, and relationships. So you'll want to grab your coffee and get comfortable as we push ourselves to grow by being uncomfortable. This is the Dopamine Pursuit Podcast. Episode 1. Hello, my friends. Thank you so much for being here. I have so much gratitude for you trusting me and for pressing play as we embark on this journey together. It is going to be a transformative one. And the first couple episodes, they aren't going to be just your normal episode. Before we can dive into all of the hows of how all of the incredible guests that will be coming onto the show, how they have reached their levels of success, how they've been able to hack their dopamine in order to pursue their best selves. Before we can dive into those hows, we must first explore our own whys, because their hows are not going to be duplicatable unless we first understand our own behaviors, our own subconscious limitations, and we not only understand why we do what we do, but we understand why we aren't doing what we want to do. So if we can have an understanding of what is holding us back and how we can overcome that, then we're going to be able to carry out the hows that all of these incredible guests are going to be sharing with us. First couple episodes, it's all about us. We are really diving into our own subconscious, and it's going to be a transformative journey if you allow it to be, as we unravel all of the unseen barriers that could potentially be holding us back. If you've ever felt the sting of missed opportunities, or heard the whispers of self-doubt, or felt the weight of unfulfilled dreams, then this episode is going to be your compass for change. You're going to want to listen all the way through, because we're going to be diving into the 6 fears that silently shape our lives, and which will reveal the keys to unlocking your true potential. I know that sounds like a big promise, but it isn't just another episode. It is going to be your ticket to conquering fears, breaking free from these limitations that we put on ourselves, and unraveling the layers as we set ourselves on a path to more fearless living. We have all heard the terms day one or one day, and a lot of the times we will say things like, oh, I'm going to do it this year. Everyone is the kings and queens of setting New Year's resolutions. Or we'll say, I'm going to start that next month. Or we'll say, I'm going to start that on Monday next week. Or worst of them all, I'm going to start it tomorrow. We've all heard that, right? Most of the time, subconsciously, we will prioritize instant gratification and staying comfortable in our everyday life over what's actually most important to us. And what's really going on here, what's causing the procrastination, what's causing the delay from these dreams, from these goals, from these to-do lists, 99.9% of the time, it is a 4-letter word, F-E-A-R, fear. In my experience working with thousands of entrepreneurs, I have found that there are generally 6 main fears that hold people back and that wreak havoc on our lives, and they cause self-sabotage. And worst part of it all is the majority of us, we don't even realize what is going on. We don't realize what's actually holding us back. We live in this state of confusion and a shame cycle because we want something, but we have this resistance to it, almost like a gravitational pull that's holding us back from being where we want to be and pulling us in the opposite direction. And I've been saying this a lot lately, and I don't know if it's because of the rise of AI, but it just makes so much sense in my head. We are going through life like robots. We are pre-programmed with generational burdens, with projected beliefs and values. And for most of us, we are in these fear cages and living this way without having the skill sets and the tools or the exposure to reprogram ourselves to our actual authentic selves. Without these tools, we go through life as these robotic slaves to our unhealed subconscious. And this is because consciously, logically, there is no way we would be afraid to go after what we really wanted. It doesn't make sense logically, but subconsciously, there's a lot more going on behind the veil. We're in a state of protection, and I'm going to dive into what I mean by that. In today's episode, we are going to lift the veil because some of us have awareness of these fears and some of us unfortunately do not. So it's my hope to bring awareness and additionally some tools to help heal and overcome these subconscious fears. If you aren't driving, this is where I want you to whip out your notebook and pen because we're going to dive deep into the 6 fears. And with each fear, I'm going to give insights on where the fear can derive from, how it commonly shows up, and how you can shift your mindset to overcome it through awareness and practice. So let's get into it. The 6 main fears that we're going to go over today, write this down. Number 1, fear of failure. Number 2, fear of success. Number 3, fear of abandonment or loss. Number 4, fear of unknown or change. Number 5, fear of rejection. And number 6, fear of judgment. These fears, they come to us in many ways. And most of the time, they're rooted in us based off of experiences we have had, often as a young child, and where we may have been made to feel like we are not good enough in some way, shape, or form. So this could have happened from a parenting figure or a teacher or a coach or bullying by peers or an embarrassing moment that may have happened to you. Or it could just be beliefs and values that are not actually yours, but have been wired into your mind from the people who raised you or people you have been surrounded with your whole life. And that modeled you these behaviors and fear cages. And in turn, you have carried them out subconsciously as well, which we're going to go into that in episode 2. 3 very important things that we need to first understand about this 4-letter word is 1, whether we have heard of these concepts and fears or not, it is important to understand that fear does not always identify itself clearly. When I first entered into the world of personal development, I remember thinking to myself, fear of success. Who would be fearful of success? Like, how does that even make sense? And I didn't even realize that there were it actually probably took me 8 years to realize that I was carrying my own fears in regards to success. And it took a lot of digging for me to come to that understanding. So you may today have new revelations, but revelations will continue to expose themselves as you continue your personal development journey and being honest with yourself and challenging yourself and asking yourself questions. But I want you to have a very open mind as we go through these, because you may also be similar to me in the way that I also thought fear of rejection, fear of failure, it makes no sense. Like, okay, who cares if someone says no? What's the big deal with that? On to the next one. But it goes a lot deeper than that a lot of the times. The blanket statement of being afraid of being successful could sound ludicrous to you. There's no way that you can identify your actions with that, because why would anyone not want to have success? But when it comes to fears, they disguise ourselves by stories we tell ourselves and wire into our belief systems, or that have been told to us by others that may have been wired into our belief systems from a very young age, in which we subconsciously live out behavior patterns that block success because of the fear behind it. So I can give you a quick example. Let's say growing up, you frequently heard stories from a close family member that there are negative consequences of success. So they may have shared experiences of how success can lead to isolation, loss of genuine relationships. They could say that there's a sense of overwhelming responsibility when it comes to success. So over time, these narratives, they become ingrained in your belief system, shaping your subconscious perceptions. Now, as an adult, you may find yourself self-sabotaging or feeling uneasy as you approach significant milestones of success. Despite consciously desiring success, your subconscious, influenced by these stories, triggers fear-based behaviors that hinder your progress. Even if the concept of fear of success initially seems perplexing or illogical, like it did for me, it's often rooted in these narratives and belief systems. Unraveling these stories and understanding their origin and consciously rewiring your beliefs can be instrumental in breaking free from your fear-based behavior patterns and embracing success without reservation. So as you listen, just be mindful of that before writing a fear off. We are going to break down each fear. So be open to exploring the different fears and if they could subconsciously be impacting you and what fears are hiding beneath the surface so we can expose it and then we can face it and break it. The second thing we need to understand about fear is that it is always going to be with us. It will show up in different forms, but how we acknowledge fear being with us is going to be the tangible I hope you take away from this episode, besides, of course, understanding the fear in the first place, but more on how we can acknowledge and be friends with fear later. The third thing to understand, because you're going to hear me say it often, is going to be the terminology fear cage. A fear cage is a metaphorical concept that describes a self-imposed mental or emotional enclosure created by fears and limiting beliefs. It represents the psychological barriers that individuals set for themselves due to various fears, inhibiting their personal growth, inhibiting our decision-making and our pursuit of our goals. So I want you to imagine a cage, and this cage, it restricts your actions and it prevents you from fully expressing your potential. This is a fear cage that is constructed from your own personal fears, your fears being the bars of the cage, and it's confining you within these certain boundaries and preventing you from venturing outside of your comfort zone. Breaking free from the fear cage is going to be involving what we are going to do here: identifying and addressing these fears, challenging limiting beliefs, and taking courageous steps to expand our comfort zones. It's about recognizing our self-imposed restrictions and actively working towards greater personal freedom and fulfillment. Let's start with the first fear, and one of the most popular, fear of failure. So many times I see people hold themselves back from going after what they truly want. They will ignore a calling, or they will sabotage a relationship because fear that it will not work out. And they stay in the most dangerous place to be. Instead of just being open to failure, they live in what I call everyone's personal hell, which is disguised in what we call comfort. Comfort seemingly feels good, but staying sedentary, ignoring and suppressing callings and emotions, staying only in the familiar, it brings on a slow, painful death. Comfort equals true unhappiness, but it's disguised by cheap hits of dopamine as you lay on the couch, scrolling your phone, chasing imaginary trophies on a game that brings you no true value, chasing likes and views on social media for validation, when truthfully, you are in the most uncomfortable place of them all, the place of abandonment to your true worth, to your dreams. We abandon ourselves when we stay in what feels like a protection state. Your nervous system is literally just trying to protect you for fear that if we go after that endeavor, we will fail. And if we don't go after it, then we can't fail. And it feels like a protection from feeling like a failure. But the truth always is lingering underneath, and that is that the only actual failure is the failure of taking the risk. And we all know that there is no reward without risk. We will never win at anything in life unless we are willing to fail. In order to achieve, we must fail. This goes for business endeavors. This goes for the goal you're going for. This goes for relationships. And I can guarantee that almost everyone listening right now has failed at something. I want you to think to what your biggest failure ever has been. Was it a relationship? Was it a goal? Was it a competition? Was it a business endeavor? As painful as that failure was, what happened after that? We learned. Now, after we learn, we have two choices. We can let that lesson drive us, or we can let that lesson bury us. We can sign up for the next competition, or we can abandon the goal altogether. What you do after failure is what will define you. What you do with the lesson from failure is what will separate you. We learned what not to do. We learned where we can improve. We learned what we could do differently. We dug a little bit deeper. We were forced to make a new plan and to execute differently. And with that, we grew. Failure equals growth always. And growth, it is my belief, should be every person on this planet's number one goal. Unfortunately, not all of us have been exposed to people or environments that promote the importance of personal growth. If you are in the percentage of people who think things like, I am just who I am, I'm here to tell you that there is a future where you can inspire positive change within yourself. If you choose to believe that, you can then take the action that will propel you into a better future. We all have the capacity to grow. We all have the capacity to evolve. No one has to be stuck in their ways or a victim of their circumstances. We can all grow, we can all do better, and we can live more fulfilled lives. But the caveat is we must be willing to fail. I say this to all my teams again and again, and you'll probably hear me say this 1,000 times over on this podcast, but we fail so we can learn, so we can succeed. I could do a whole episode alone on failure and everyone who had to drastically fail in order to get to where they are. And I would bet that you couldn't find me one successful person on this planet who hasn't failed dozens of times, if not thousands of times over. But the difference between the strong and the weak are those who embrace failure. They know even if they enter into a relationship, it could end in heartbreak, and that's painful. Sure, it has the possibility to fail. There's no guarantees in life, but they'll learn from it and they will grow from it, and it will propel them into a new growth journey. And they know that even if they fall on their face in business, they will gain new skill sets to carry into the next business. They take a different type of comfort in knowing that failure brings lessons and understanding that failure is just part of the dues that must be paid. There's no getting around that. They embrace that, and in turn, they succeed. If you are afraid to fail, stop being cheap. Pay the dues, drop the ego, and when you do fail, instead of going into hiding and pretending it didn't happen or wanting to just ignore it, use it as ammunition. Use it as the story that inspires others of how you're going to continue to keep going. And again, expose yourself. When others see you failing, this is a source of inspiration for you to create more impact, because now you are more relatable. Now people can see the hard times and not just the glory moments. Now people are going to follow you even closer because you are just like them, imperfect. So stop trying to paint a vision, if you are, of perfection by avoiding or hiding. Failure is what makes us, not what breaks us. People want to see that after you fail, that you chose to still keep going. How are you going to choose to believe in love after you had your heart broken? How do you pick up the pieces from there? How do you pick up the pieces when the brand you were creating doesn't work out the way that you wanted it to, or the promotion was missed at the end of the month, or whatever the case may be? How do you keep going when you don't get what you want and you fail at something? How do you move from there? I'm going to tell you, you're going to fight to reaching your endeavor's potential, and you won't stop until you make what you want to happen. Boom. You just turned failure not only into a lesson, but now an inspiring story of resilience, as you simultaneously are building an army of people who are now following you, rooting for you, and cheering you on. Because even if it means you fail 7 more times, they will cheer you on to stand up 8. And on that 8th or 800th time of standing up, the victory will be that much freaking sweeter because you confronted failure, you welcomed it, you learned from it, you grew from it, and you freaking conquered it. So embrace failure. Number 2, fear of success. The fear of success can show up in many ways. The way I have seen it show up on my teams most commonly is I don't want to obtain this goal because if I do, it will require more from me and I'm not confident that I will be able to deliver on that. I'll give you an example. In one of the industries I'm involved with mentoring in, there are typically multiple promotions for you to obtain in your career. I want you to envision this as I describe it so you can follow. But in this specific company, an example I'm going to refer to, there are 10 promotions. By the 3rd promotion, you are required to step into an entry leadership role where you have one person on your team minimum who has been promoted to their first promotion. By the 4th promotion, you now have multiple people on your team whom have been promoted. And by your 6th promotion, you now have an entire organization of people who are having success, which requires you to continue to lead from the front, showing your team the way, but also to take on leadership roles, helping provide feedback, sharing what's working and what's not working for you. Consistency as a leader at that point is required, and you have a whole team looking to you to show the way. Whereas before, you were only responsible for yourself and no one was looking to you for guidance and answers. What I find so sad is that so many people in this industry would take on this imposter syndrome, which we'll eventually do a full episode on. But they would have this feeling that they were unworthy of this leadership role, even though they did the action and the work that was required to lead and to obtain that role in the first place. But now, having that understanding that they must be consistent and people were looking to them, I would see it time and time again, they would begin to self-sabotage and go backwards. They would revert back to their subconscious drivers and let comfort lead the way and would just self-sabotage because it felt like if they kept going, even though it would continue to be attached to massive rewards, success, more trips, more monetary income, more impact, there would be more required of them that they would have to meet, and that scared them. Or I would see where they would have their first win and then self-sabotage and never even get past the 2nd or 3rd promotion because fear of stepping into that first leadership position in the first place was too much on their subconscious, conflicting feelings of unworthiness, despite how much they consciously wanted the extra income and to impact others. The subconscious belief that was wired into their minds of unworthiness was more powerful than the desire to reach their potential. Now, I do want to be clear that this isn't the case, obviously, for every single person that came into this opportunity and didn't hit the goals that they set out to hit, or for your opportunity. But if this is resonating or striking a chord with you in any way, I want you to remember that this is not your fault. This is neurologically wired in us, previous beliefs and patterns that are causing us to self-sabotage. And this is really sad because a lot of the times we don't even have the awareness. But how do we overcome the fear of success? Well, we have to first recognize it, have the awareness that it's programmed into our subconscious. And you may have recognized your self-sabotaging behaviors already, but didn't really have an understanding to it. But if this resonates with you in any way, it may be time to explore this. So another avenue to explore is your relationship with money, your beliefs about money. So this is just another example, but because some of us grew up being told money doesn't grow on trees, or maybe people who have money are bad people. So whatever limiting beliefs that were projected on us by adult figures that influence us, we again have to rewire our minds into understanding how our views of money, our beliefs, and our self-worth all tie together. Is this my belief, or was this said to me? Is this my belief, or is this projected on me? Do I really feel that people with money are bad people, or do I know that there are people with money that are good people as well? These things take work, but again, step one is recognizing it And then step 2 is to sit with it and ask yourself questions. If I reach this level of success, what is the worst thing that could happen? When you sit with that question, you might be surprised with some of the answers that you come up with. How would I feel if I reach this level of success? Maybe the answer in subconscious belief is that it could cause separation from someone you love, and that is what is scaring you and holding you back. Challenge those negative beliefs. Get real with yourself and ask yourself, what is the best thing that could happen if I reach this level of success? Take yourself through what we call heaven and hell. What's the best that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? How would either of these feel? What does it look like if I don't accomplish this? How do I feel? What does it look like if I do? How do I feel? You have to trust yourself. When you trust yourself, doors that you couldn't even imagine will open for you. And you have to trust yourself to stay true to who you are as you reach all levels of success. Trust your capabilities. And remember, you are stronger and more capable than you think. But it all starts with belief. Number 3, fear of abandonment and or loss. I see this one show up the majority of the time in relationships, and it hurts my soul because I see it so clearly. And that's because it's a mirror to one of my biggest fears. And it is something that I have had to work hard to overcome, that I'm still working to overcome. But fear of abandonment usually will come from not having your needs met as a child, or an absent parent figure, or perhaps being blindsided in a relationship where it ended before you were ready to end. It can also come when you've lost someone in our physical world too soon. And the pain of this loss or neglect can sometimes be so deep that you will block positive blessings and positive relationships for fear of the pain of potentially losing them. Or it can show up in having an anxious energy because you have a constant fear that the people or person that you love might leave. Or it can show up in the business format where you can potentially become stagnant or in freeze mode and self-sabotage in an already successful business because you allow yourself to believe that you could lose it any day due to outside circumstances. All of these behaviors are a form of trying to have control over an outcome that we do not have control over. Mel Robbins has a saying, and she says, let them. People are going to leave. Let them. Someone might not show up for us in the way that we would hope. Let them. We do not have control over the time someone leaves us on earth, or the choices of others, or how they choose to show up for us or not show up for us in relationships or business. What we do have control over is how we show up each day. So understanding that, and also understanding with every pain and loss, there's always going to be growth on the other side. Same thing we talked about with fear of failure. Our greatest losses are always going to propel us into our greatest moments of growth. The uncomfortable, hard moments life will most inevitably always present us with are the moments that will forever be where our challenges arise. And the challenges, just like the failures, we should welcome. The challenges that provide us to transcend even further into our highest selves as we gather lessons, we grow, and we overcome. We must not fear loss. Believe that when something leaves or when something ends, it is just making space for the right people or things to align. And in terms of death, we have to try to find gratitude in the time that we did have versus focusing on the time that we won't have. How lucky were we to experience that love and connection with the person that had to leave us behind. And if you believe in reincarnation or an afterlife, trust that they're at peace and on the path that they're meant to be on, as are we. Keep your focus on yourself and just be. I'm sure that's what our loved ones would want for us anyways. They want us to be our best self. So focus on you. Same with our failed relationships. How lucky were we to experience a love so strong and so beautiful that when it ended, we felt such a deep pain. That may sound counterintuitive, but I personally believe that it's one of the most beautiful human experiences to allow yourself to feel so deeply. Some don't ever experience, and when it ended, if it left, let it. Welcome new love to come again without the assumption that it too will leave. Don't let the pain of your past block the blessings of your future, because what's right for you will always stay. So this is your moment to unclench your grasp of control and understand that nothing that is meant for you will ever miss you. Take those moments of past loss or the ideas of future loss as a moment that you know that will provide you opportunities for self-reflection, getting closer with self, and having more time to just focus on self. We are never truly abandoned if we always stay true to ourselves and show up for ourselves. It's important for all of us to have the mindset that outside circumstances that cause loss can become gratitude, lessons, and opportunities, in which we welcome. So overcoming these means we have faith over fear and loss, and we practice gratitude for these hard moments, and we always point the finger back to ourselves. What lesson is seeking to emerge here? How can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? How can I prevent myself from self-abandoning? Because I'm never abandoned if I always continue to show up for myself. Number 4, fear of the unknown or change. This can show up in many ways as well. It can come up in the way of having a dream to move to a new city or to begin a new job, but staying in what is comfortable because the fear of having to make all new friends, start a new life, or have a new routine is more dominant than the desire to evolve. Please do not let this fear hold you back. We said this in the beginning of the episode, but comfort, simply put, leads you to a slow death. And I will tell you something, coming from a person that moves a lot, I move quite frequently, there is nothing more empowering than moving to a new city where you do not know a single soul, finding a new pace, finding a new routine, learning new streets, and exploring new surroundings. On top of this being empowering, this is good for your mind and soul. It is a scientific proven fact that changing your scenery and your routine from time to time is so important for your brain health. It forces us to process things differently and think in new ways. So if you know that this is one of your biggest fears, change or the unknown, my challenge for you, and the way that we're going to conquer this, is that I want you to challenge yourself each day with 1 to 2 tasks that are unique or out of your routine or typical route. It can be as simple as trying a new workout class, driving a different route to work, or maybe it's going to be attending a social event that you wouldn't typically attend. 1 to 2 tasks a day. I want you to write them down in the morning and then be very intentional about completing them. And if you do this for 1 to 3 months straight, I guarantee you, your mind is going to open up to the possibilities of expansion and facing the unknown. And with that, you will have guaranteed growth. Moving on to number 5, we have fear of rejection. This one is typically linked to both fear of abandonment and fear of judgment. However, it's given its own because sometimes these aren't interlinked at all. And sometimes someone will just completely have a freeze response to a task that they consciously want to carry out. But because of a deep-rooted fear that they will be turned down or rejected in some kind of way, they're in that freeze mode. So this can sometimes come from being bullied as a kid. And for me, I do want to share that I have struggled with fear of rejection, and I didn't really realize that I struggled with this because I, in a lot of circumstances, had zero problem being told no. Someone told me no. I was like, that's a challenge. I wanted to be a lawyer. I took my LSAT. Tell me no, please. I am going to figure out a way to get you to tell me yes. I was that way in most situations, almost all situations. However, there were some personal situations that I realized I did have a fear. So it wasn't until I started to do this deep inner work that I started to uncover these memories of having this feeling of rejection. There's one instance I can remember. I think it was my 7th birthday that I had 2 of my closest friends there. We were all really vibing. It was all good vibes. And then one of my best friends told the other best friend to cross out my name. We were doing artwork, to cross out happy birthday, Kristen, and write mean things about me instead. And so they did that, and they were whispering, and they were like playing this game. And I just remember at my own birthday party going to the bathroom and just feeling this like deep pain of just, why are they being mean to me? I feel rejected. Why do I not feel loved in this situation? But I think that sometimes when you're bullied as a kid, you have these types of experiences. It can in turn create your desire to fit in or to be accepted by others innately stronger. And in order to protect yourself, you sometimes won't put yourself out there at all in order to protect your feelings from being turned down or to feel like feelings of not being worthy or whatever it is that you're seeking acceptance on. And I do think that a part of me not doing this podcast for 5 years, I think a part of it was fear of rejection. And there's a fear of, what if what I'm saying isn't being accepted? What if it's not good enough for people to really understand the message that I'm trying to deliver? But the truth is, the world needs your voice. The world needs my voice. It needs your voice. It needs your impact. It needs your efforts. It needs your love. It needs you. Do not hold yourself back because you don't want to be rejected. It's true. You won't be for everyone. Rejection is only redirection. And rejection in this format is going to only be redirection to the correct people that do want to perceive this message. And once we accept that everything and everyone will not be for us, handling rejection becomes a lot easier. Say it with me. Not everything or everyone will be for me, and that's okay. We see something and we can say, I want that to be mine. And then when it doesn't go our way, whether it's a pitch for a business opportunity, a relationship, an offer of any kind, we have these feelings of unworthiness. But if we rephrase, I want it to be mine, to I like what I see in this opportunity and I'm open to exploring if this is for me, and I'm open to being redirected if it is not, it can make all of the difference. We need to remove the attachment from result that we do not have control over and accept any redirection that may transpire as blessings to something better. And if we can flip the script, everything will transform. So put yourself out there, because you can get 100 no's, but most of the time, all it takes is one yes. And that one yes will almost always be worth the 100 no's just to get that yes. Now, if you know rejection is a strong fear of yours, here is your challenge. Challenge yourself one step further by searching for the no's. We're going to keep a log of our no's. We're going to write them down. And we are going to use them as ammunition and hits of dopamine, a reminder that we are one no closer to our yes. You may even find patterns. 10 no's equals 1 yes. Track it, gamify it. And remember, rejection is simply redirection to what is right for you. Number 6, last one, fear of judgment. I know you guys have seen the memes and the phrases, your opinions do not pay my bills. The moment you worry about what someone else is thinking of you is the moment you are handing them the pin to your bank account. What I have come to realize is that when we have a fear of judgment, it is typically because how we are currently judging ourselves or even others. For some of us, we were brought up in environments that judging others is part of the norm. Someone walks by, an adult figure comments on their appearance or their behavior in some type of way, and we are taught that it is an acceptable topic of conversation to make remarks of others or to speak negatively of ourselves, of life, of what's going on in the world. And it does so much damage to ourselves without us even realizing that the big and small things that we say daily, they all matter. I remember in the book, The Mountain Is You by Brianna West, which, by the way, a phenomenal book, which covers a ton on self-sabotage. Brianna's my favorite author, and I'm going to say it right now, she's a dream guest for this podcast. But she said in this book, maybe you aren't a pessimist, but you don't know how to connect with people in life other than complaining to them. She says that to reconcile this, you have to begin to challenge these pre-existing ideas and then adopt new ones. It's common to be a conversational topic programmed into our minds that it's okay to talk negatively and poorly or have commentary at all of others. And it's a learned behavior and connecting from the way a lot of the times that we were brought up. But talking about others negatively or judging others in any other way brings zero value to the table. We all are humans having our own extraordinarily unique experiences, and everyone's moving to the beats of their own personal subconscious based off of their own inner experiences through their development, participating in behaviors that serve us, and growing to the extent of our mind's understanding of the exposures we have been brought to. If I were super religious, I would insert a Bible verse right here because it sounds right, but thou shalt not judge. When we judge others, we judge ourselves. When we should all be living in compassion and empathy, not only for ourselves, but for others as well. And when we vibrate primarily on compassion and love, our frequency heightens and attraction to good things and positivity will expand. Now, circling all the way back to our environments and learned behaviors, it's important to note if your friends or family participate in this behavior often of talking about others or judging others, don't be afraid to speak up on this and tell them you will not be participating anymore. And with that, please expect that there will be probably and usually a misunderstanding about this or a rebuttal from the people who have not reached this new understanding you have now reached. If they ask, you can explain, or you can send them this podcast. But my advice would be to not project your newfound understandings onto them unless they are interested or asked to understand further. This choice is as simple as protecting yourself from the judgment of yourself by refraining to also judge others and to live in more love and compassion for yourself and everyone around you. Remember, you are a product of your environment though. And although you may be ready for this change, the people around you may not be. But again, the higher you vibrate, the more you will attract the people who do understand this, bringing you positivity, conversations filled with love, development, and growth. But stay strong in this conviction and live in compassion and watch more beautiful things unfold for you, including the release of the fear that others will judge you as well, because now we know judgment of others is truly only a reflection of how others judge themselves. And there's freedom in that, and knowing that any judgment that will incur at the root has nothing to do with you. And again, that's okay. Mayfair Group posted a quote recently, and it said, "Self-judgment resides where self-love and acceptance wishes to be. Every day you have the choice to judge or to love yourself. Which will you choose?" And that is a wrap on the 6 common fears that hold us back. But I also want to leave you with some applicable thoughts to really sit with. First thought, fear can be of service to you. Fear has already been serving you. Fear isn't a deep, dark, ugly thing. Fear really is just a friend trying to protect you. We can often interpret fear as something horrible because of the feeling that arises with it. But when we realize that emotion and we let it in and we place an imaginary arm around it, and understand it will always be with you, but there's ways that you can collaborate and move through things together. then your movement with fear will begin to change. It is the way. For me, personally, fear shows up almost in a freeze state where I stop, slowing me down from achieving some of my dreams because I didn't understand or take the time to really dive into the root of what was beneath the fear. What was it connected to? What was the first time I felt that fear and the icky feelings? When's the first time that I could remember feeling that way? Thinking that through, sitting with it, could potentially help you uncover memories that help you link a better understanding to how you connect with fear. And going back to those moments and connecting to how they show up in adulthood now is so important. An example, I bought podcast equipment in 2019 to begin the pursuit of launching a podcast. I knew I had so much value to share with the world. And in 2020, I recorded my first episode. And then I played that episode for a friend and I didn't love the feedback. For years, I allowed hesitation to stop creation. I would overthink. I would feed on insecurities. What if I misspoke? What if I stuttered? Sometimes I have Kristenisms where I pronounce words incorrectly. And then to top it all off, cancel culture erupted in 2020 and it terrified me. What if I said something out of ignorance and it hurt someone without me even having the understanding of the impact of what I said? So then I just spiraled, allowing insecurities and fear to overpower a dream. It was a fear that I couldn't trust myself to show up in a way without error. But we all make errors. We all fail. And the calling in my heart, the inner voice telling me that this is something I needed to do, it never went away. So if you have a calling that keeps coming to you and a calling that you have written down on goal list after goal list, listen to it. Please listen to it. It was placed in your heart for a reason. And it has taken me far too long to trust that and to take the risk because that is what the human experience is all about. I believe it is about taking the risk, facing the fear. And as stated throughout this entire episode, if we fall, we learn, but there's not beauty in this world if we live a life without risk. So here we are, interrupting finally fear with action. And I said earlier, I allowed it for far too long, but I had to understand it, which leads me to being exactly on time with where I'm meant to be. And the same goes for you with where you are. We are all exactly in the timing of where we're meant to be, despite the failures and the journey it has taken us to get to today. We had to become the person we are by going through everything in our past to make us who we are today. And for me specifically, I had to go through it all to provide these exact words for you at the exact time for you to hear it, to show up for you, to be ready for you authentically, 100% all in, and tossing all my former habits and betrayals of my truest self as I would chase, me too, unhealthy hits of dopamine. But I'm here with you today in pursuit to chase all of the healthy hits of dopamine with you as we build better habits, we leave behind fears, and we grow into the people that we are meant to be. We are not behind, we are right on time. And now I have my arm around my shadow of fear that shows up with me in so many aspects of my life, including before shooting this first episode. And I'm telling her, hey, we are doing this together and that's okay. And I now know that fear will continue to show up in many different ways of my life, but I can work with her and not against her. And lastly, fear can be really confusing because the actual intention of fear within is to protect you. It's actually very positive. But there's two different types of fear. There's a fear that keeps you alive to protect you, like running from a bear. That fear is getting you going. And then there's a fear that keeps you from living, running from love, as an example. So fear puts you in this state and your nervous system doesn't know the difference between what it's trying to protect you from, the fear of a bear chasing you or the fear of emotional pain, both in which we want to run from. Fear will provide you a reactivity to escape the possibility of that pain. Fear always lives in the future. When you feel fear impacting your current state, how are you in the future of attempting to predict and control? This has been a really helpful tool for me. When I find myself kind of spiraling, I realize I'm thinking too far into the future. What am I trying to predict? What am I trying to control? How can I get back into my body right now? Where do I feel the fear? How can I kind of just be with it in my body and put my arm around that fear, say hello, and then get back into action? What small step of action can I take right now to build momentum? Fear is where the lesson is. Faith over fear, trusting path, trusting ourselves, trusting the universe, trusting our callings, and just living. A bear is not chasing you. You are going to be okay. Listening to this podcast once, or me sharing this with you today on fears, as I just shared, I too am still overcoming these fears and learning how to dance with them. But me writing this episode or you listening to it once isn't going to fix us overnight. We have officially completed the first step of awareness. The second step is exploring the tangible tools to increase our skill sets of overcoming these fears. And then the third step is going to be committing to daily practice and work for all of time as we continue to recognize, notice, and conquer these fears, but to also give ourselves grace and patience in the process of overcoming them. So baby steps. Don't blanket who you are because of a misstep today as who you are forever. So if you process and take action on implementing some of these tools today, and then you fall back into old patterns and misstep tomorrow, it does not define you. Just keep standing back up and taking the tiny micro shifts in action to build towards a more fearless future. I recently saw this clip of Alex Hormozi explaining fear, and I love the analogy. He said that fear is a mile wide and an inch deep, and it looks like an ocean that if we step into it, we're going to drown. But as soon as we actually step into it, we realize it wasn't that deep at all, and we can walk through it. But we have this anxiety about this decision or movement that we can make. But if you actually just take the step and realize it's not death, you aren't going to drown, there's plenty of progress that we can make, even if we get a little wet. The motto of our lives, we must face our fears, run towards them, and if it makes you uncomfortable, even more reason to go for it. So in the show notes, I provided you an activity to dig deeper with your fears. As we discussed, guided worksheets to help you ask yourself the hard questions, dig deeper into the subconscious so we can begin to reprogram ourselves to living a more fearless life. I've also provided in the show notes links to some of my favorite books that discuss overcoming fear, and maybe save this episode link in your own notes for you to come back to and refer to if you ever feel like you are noticing you're holding yourself back and you need a refresher. Thank you for showing up with me today. If you like this episode, please share it, especially if you have a friend or maybe a family member, a specific team member, or an entire team that could benefit from hearing this. Add this episode to your resources or send them the link. Please tag us on Instagram. And if you really loved it, it would mean the absolute world to me if you would subscribe and leave us a review and help us reach more people in the pursuit and mission of impacting as many people as we can. Thank you so much for being here today. Be so proud of yourself. You just took the time to get all the way through this episode, and I will talk to you on the next.